I'd like to welcome everyone here to the White House. In 1992, President Clinton had a simple vision in his campaign. If a parent worked full-time, they should not have to raise their children in poverty. 27 days after he took the oath of office, the President proposed an even larger increase in the Earned Income Tax Credit than he'd proposed in his campaign's election plan, so that together with a minimum wage increase, he could make this vision a reality for millions of American families. To fund the dramatic increase in the Earned Income Tax Credit, the President had to include some very difficult and politically painful fiscal measures in his 1993 economic plan. But the President held firm in 1993, and he has continued to hold firm every single year since then against anyone who has sought to turn back the clock on America's most hard-pressed families by cutting back the Earned Income Tax Credit. And he has certainly been aided in that fight by many of the people here today, including members of Congress like Bob Matsui and John Lewis, and particularly Bob Greenstein of the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities. The result of the President's commitment goes deeper than the 15 million families and households who've received a significant increase in their tax cut. As the Council of Economic Advisors report, coordinated by Janet Yellen and Rebecca Blank, will show, the Earned Income Tax Credit has had a significant impact in reducing poverty and providing more single parents with the hope and incentive to move from welfare to work. Over half of the significant reduction in child poverty since 1993 can be attributed to the increase in the Earned Income Tax Credit passed in 1993 and signed by the President. And the CEA report also shows that the significant increase in work among single women, increasing from 73.7% to 84%, is strongly linked to this expansion of the Earned Income Tax Credit. The President has continued to reinforce his commitment through his efforts to improve the compliance and effectiveness of the Earned Income Tax Credit and his current plans to further add to the 90-cent increase in the minimum wage that he fought for and signed in 1996. The woman whom I'm about to introduce right now, Amy Hillen, is here today to speak not only on behalf of herself and her two children, Alexandra and Maxwell, but on behalf of the millions and millions of hardworking American families who have had their hopes brightened and their work rewarded by this President and this Vice President's commitment to increase the minimum wage and strengthen a tax credit that is specifically designed to reward the work and effort of America's most hard-pressed and deserving families.
My name is Amy Hillen, and I'm here today to talk to everyone about the EIC along with welfare reform. Just to give you a little background, I just want to tell you a little bit about how I got to that point. Upon separation from my husband, and after my first child, Alexandra, was the main reason for my family to seek welfare benefits. I was attending college at the time and working part-time. I could get the child care vouchers to attend school, but not for work. And at that time, there was more emphasis on school or training than to work. I decided this route was best for my family, and it provided me with the support I needed so I could concentrate on my education in hopes that I would eventually be able to make it on my own. After many attempts to reconcile with my husband and after my son Maxwell was born, I realized that I was on my own and I had better make the best of it. I was able to finish college in 1994, 6 months after my son was born. I graduated with my BA degree in art history. Shortly after that time, I began my job search, and I soon began to realize there was no way that I could work and pay for child care for 2 children. The tides would turn once welfare reform was initiated in Howard County in October of 1996. I found out through the grapevine that I could work and I would still be able to get the supportive services that I needed so that my entire paycheck would not end up in the daycare provider's pocket. And mind you, I was not getting paid minimum wage. I was making $10 an hour at the time. Even at this rate, which is not uncommon for the recipients transitioning off of welfare in Howard County, we would be working for nearly nothing. However, other financial incentives were available that made the big difference: the Earned Income Tax Credit and the collection of child support. Both of these have been a tremendous boost in helping me to keep gainful employment. Last year's EIC credit allowed me to pay off my bills so that I could purchase a car, which I had not had for 2 years. This year, I plan to pay off the car early. In addition, the purchase of the car has allowed me to go back to school. I am proud to say that this fall I started graduate school majoring in public administration. The past 2 years have been a series of giant leaps towards self-sufficiency, and I finally feel that I'm getting ahead. I am setting goals for the future, one of which is to buy a home. With the right combination of support networks, including the welfare reform, the new child support laws, and the EIC tax credit, I have been able to make the large strides financially. But most importantly, the rewards I have experienced are more emotional in nature, that I feel good about work and how my life is changing and how my children see what hard work is all about. My story is not uncommon, and there have been many individuals who have benefited from the EIC tax credit. Some of them, like myself, have used it to stay off of welfare, and there's still others that I have come in contact with that have been able to use it to support their low incomes, such as working families. It's just been a great benefit for everyone who is transitioning off welfare to receive that tax credit. And I'd like to thank President Clinton for that, and has made a big difference in our lives and my children's lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Now, Amy's children are over there. And we also have Bernadette Hockaday and her children, and Rhonda Clark and her children here. They're all here, and we thank them all for coming because they all have benefited from the Earned Income Tax Credit. I'd like to thank Gene Sperling, who believed passionately in this when I first met him, well over 6 years ago now. Janet Yellen, the Council of Economic Advisors, Secretary Herman, who was here in the White House helping us to implement the Earned Income Tax Credit in '93. I thank Congressman John Lewis and Congressman Bob Matsui, who are here, who have been passionate advocates. And all the other advocates in the room here, Bob Greenstein, Justin Dart, the others who are here, we thank you for your support. One of the main reasons that I ran for president in 1992 was that I believed that people like Amy could achieve real success if we could unstack the deck against them. I knew that when our nation was taxing working families into poverty, that was wrong. I knew that when a mother rises at dawn, putting in an honest day's work, and still can't afford to buy the children's clothes, that's wrong. And I was determined to try to do something about it. I also knew that there was a little-known provision in the tax code, which had been in for several years, called the Earned Income Tax Credit, that had the potential, if it were actually expanded at an appropriate level, to lift all working families out of poverty. And that's how all this started. Again, let me say I'm very grateful for everybody who has supported this. I think one important thing I'd like to point out is that we have representatives here from the AFL-CIO, from AFSCME, from other unions, most of whose members do not get the Earned Income Tax Credit, and they lobbied for it too because they thought it was right. And so for all of you, I just say I'm very grateful. What we tried to do in 1993 was two things. First of all, we had to get the economy moving again, and secondly, we had to focus on the special needs of people who were working hard at lower wage levels. But first things first, We had to get the whole economy moving again. Middle-class incomes had been stagnant for 20 years. And we could never have given lower-income working people the chance to raise their incomes if it hadn't been for a policy promoting overall economic growth. Just this morning, we received more good news for America's families on our overall economic policies. Secretary Herman's department reports that last month unemployment fell to 4.4%, while inflation remains low and stable. That for nearly a year and a half, the unemployment rate has remained below 5% for the first time in 28 years. And in November, the economy added more than 250,000 jobs, which means now America has created about 17.3 million jobs in the last 6 years. That is a very good record of which the American people can be very proud. But let's go back to the main point. Even with all those new jobs, under the present circumstances, the way the economy works, millions and millions of those people would be working full-time and still be living in poverty. So what I wanted to do in 1993 was to create new incentives to help people climb the economic ladder and reach true independence, to enable people to succeed at work and at home in raising their children. So we got the dramatic increase in the Earned Income Tax Credit into the budget in 1993. And 2 years ago, we fought for and won a substantial increase in the minimum wage, which I still believe we ought to increase again. Unemployment and inflation are low, and it still has not recovered its levels of 20 or 25 years ago in real dollar terms. Today, we release a report prepared by the Council of Economic Advisors. It shows that the Earned Income Tax Credit as a family tax cut has been a major factor in encouraging work among single mothers, which you heard Amy talk about. It has also been responsible for much of our strong progress in reducing child poverty. In fact, the report shows that of the 4.3 million people who have been lifted out of poverty since 1993 by the Earned Income Tax Credit, over half of them, well over half of them, have been lifted out because we basically doubled the program in 1993. And again, I want to say to Bob Matsui and John Lewis, it was hard to raise the money to pay for that doubling. And there were a lot of people, even in our party, who were afraid to do it, and with some good reason, as it turned out. But it was the right thing to do. And I hope it's something that all of you will always be proud of. Now, since 1993, families with 2 children and 1 parent working full-time at the minimum wage, therefore, have seen their incomes rise by more than $2,700 because of the increase in the minimum wage and the Earned Income Tax Credit. This has strengthened families, it's strengthened communities, it's helped to restore our compact of mutual responsibility that people who work hard and play by the rules ought to have a chance to be rewarded for it. And again, it helps us to promote both the values of family and work. So I feel very, very good about this, and I feel great about the overall economic news this morning. But let me also say to all of you, this is not a time for self-congratulation or a time to rest. We have more to do here at home and more to do to stabilize the global economy if we expect economic growth to continue. We all know about the economic troubles in Asia. We all see sectors of America's steel industry being overwhelmed by imports at fire sale prices. We have all read the headlines about Boeing's layoffs because of the inability of Asian airlines to pay for planes which they have already ordered. We see other problems in the global economy as well. Now, we're working hard to reverse the problems in Asia, to limit their reach, to stabilize the long-term system under which so many Americans and so many hundreds of millions of people around the world have benefited. but it is a sobering thought to remind us that we have to continue to work on this. Finally, let me say we have to continue to work on the conditions of working families here at home. Many people still cannot get affordable child care. The minimum wage should still be raised. We still have a great deal to do to stabilize the conditions of working families and to genuinely reward work in this country. In the last session of Congress, we passed an expansion of our empowerment agenda to try to bring more jobs, more incomes, more investments into poor inner city and rural areas. We still have a great deal to do there. So as you leave here today and you think about Amy and these other two fine mothers and these beautiful children who are here, and the millions and millions of people whom they represent all across America, I hope you will always be proud of what you have done. But remember, this economy still is not working for everyone, and it is still living in a very turbulent international environment. So I ask you also to continue to support our efforts to deal with the challenges which still have to be met, to keep the growth going, and to make sure that what we do here, so far from the lives of most Americans, actually helps them to make those lives better. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. Thank you, Congressman Rangel. It's good to see you.